Let's go for it!
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host, here at The Dark Stuff. Thanks a lot for checking out my new video. Doing a pickups video today because I actually had two pretty great hauls right within a couple of days. And, you know, one was at a half-price books, but one was at this, like, pop-up record shop, which we'll talk about in a sec here. But I got some really good stuff. I was pretty happy. I got good prices. You know, everyone knows how inflated the vinyl prices are these days. But, I don't know. I feel like I got some pretty good deals. One or two I maybe overpaid for. But, I mean, you know, you live and you learn, I suppose. That's, to quote Alanis Morissette. Let me describe this, like, pop-up record shop. So, it's a guy I know, Eric Ziegler, who's... first of all, his claim to fame should be that he was my original co-host on my radio show, New Day Rising. But nobody really knows that because he was only there at the very beginning when we were on like super late at night. So most people weren't aware that he was on it. But he was an assistant manager at the Homer's Records downtown for probably 20 plus years or whatever. He worked there for a really long time, and he left the store, and he's now doing his own thing, selling records, and I think full-time, but he doesn't have his own shop, so he moves different locations. So yesterday, Sunday, he had this thing at a place called The Switch, which is in this part of Omaha called the Blackstone. It's kind of an up-and-coming area, and The Switch is like a condo building, and then on the main floor is this sort of food court with all this great international food, like all this new stuff. They had like a Venezuelan place, they had a Latino vegan place, they had this other, I got catfish at this one place. That's not international, but you know what I mean. Just a lot of really great stuff. And then they set up all those records in the back, and you buy records, you have a beer, you get food. You know, it was a really fun experience. So I got up there and I found lots of great stuff. I went with two other people, and they both found some great stuff too. Let's just start burning through it, right? So first is Blue Oyster Cult Secret Treaties. This is their 74 album. It's a classic. I've had this digitally for a while, but I didn't have it on vinyl, and when my video, my incomplete collection of Blue Oyster Cult, I did talk about how this is a glaring omission to my collection, and I wanted it. It has Career of Evil, Dominance and Submission, Astronomy, Harvester of Eyes, a lot of great stuff. This is fantastic, and glad to add it to my collection. Okay, little known fact about me is that when I was a kid, about 10 years old, 81 or so, my favorite band in the world was Styx, okay? Here's Styx Equinox, what I bought a copy of yesterday. Okay. So, Styx was my band, and that was like the Paradise Theater period, and then they had Kilroy Was Here, and I saw them in concert back then. But I also went back and I bought every single Styx cassette that existed at the time. So I went all the way back, got their early independent records. I did have this one. This was their first major label one, Equinox, from 75. I got Grand Illusion, pieces of whatever. You know, at some point along the line, 84, 85 or so, I kind of abandoned Styx and I really didn't listen to them anymore. But every once in a while, when I do hear some of the old stuff, it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, I hate that. So I got this one. It was only $5. It's a really nice copy. I don't know if it's original or not, but it doesn't have a barcode, so it's definitely from the 70s. And I threw it on, and of course, I knew the songs, Light Up, Lorelei was a single, and then of course, Sweet Madam Blue was like a staple on FM radio throughout the 70s and 80s, and it's one of Styx's best-known songs. I don't know if they still play it anymore because of Dennis DeYoung not being in the band, but I was looking at some of these other songs, and I was like, I don't know if I remember Mother Dear or Lonely Child or Midnight Ride. You know, I was like, I don't know if I remember these because I had probably been listening to them in like 35, 40 years. I put it on, and yeah, the second Mother Dear started, or Lonely Child, or even Midnight Ride, which was James J.Y. Young's track. His are always the heavier ones. I remembered every single one of these songs. This is a great record. This is pre-Tommy Shaw Styx. This was right before they broke big, but man, this was actually quite satisfying. I did find Sweet Madam Blue to be a little cheesier than I remembered it. I love the beginning of the song, and as it builds, you know, and then it gets into the heavy part. But then when they do that part, the where it's America, America. I mean, it is kind of corny. If they could just cut that out and make it like a 4.5-minute song without that, it would be perfect. But anyways, I'm glad I got this. Styx Equinox. I've always kind of liked The Call, but I've never owned any of their stuff. I do have one live album by The Call, which, okay, so this is Michael Bean, and he was the leader of the band. He was the singer, and he wrote most of the songs. His son is in Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. That's Robert Bean. And, you know, Michael passed away a couple years ago, maybe close to 10 almost at this point. And so his son joined in with the rest of the guys in The Call, and they did a live record as dedication to his dad. That's the only Call record I have, but I've always known some of their songs. That When the Walls Come Down, I always thought was a great single. This one has Let the Day Begin, the title cut of the album, their album from 1989. I only got through side one. I didn't have a chance to listen to all of this stuff, but I only got through side one, and none of those songs were as compelling or as good as Let the Day Begin. But, so I don't know. But I mean, you know, so far so good. I've never seen this Fishbone 12-inch before. It's kind of a Christmas EP with It's a Wonderful Life. Gonna have a good time, which actually... any Fishbone greatest hits or best of will have that on there, but the rest of this stuff, the subsequent stuff, you can't find anywhere. It's not on the streamers. It's not on anything. Mine's a promotional copy. You can see it stamped on the back there, the golden stamp. And the other tracks are Christmas-oriented stuff. I mean, Saint Nick, You Devil, Just Call Me Scrooge, the other name of the song. Another one called Iration. So just a fun... trying to read what year this came out. 1987 from Fishbone, just a promo 12. Also promotional is this Raven EP called Mad. I mean, I've been aware of who Raven was for a long time. I never got any of their records, and so this was the first time I grabbed a Raven record. It was $5. It was sitting there in the bin. I grabbed it, and I don't know. I didn't really care for it. I thought it wasn't terrible or anything. It just was kind of corny, and maybe I got the wrong one. I mean, I don't know. But for my first attempt at buying a Raven record, this is a 1986 EP called Mad. Promo copy. Wasn't really feeling it. I just wanted the copy of this on vinyl. I've had it on CD for 30 plus years. But I never had a copy of Cheap Trick's first album, their debut. Amazing, amazing record, which I never realized. The engineer on this record, Jay Messina, like the guy from Loggins and Messina, he was the engineer on the Cheap Trick record. Interesting. This is so great. If you don't have this in your collection and you kind of like Cheap Trick, I mean, this has Hot Love, which is amazing. Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace. He's a Whore. Come on. Monticello, Hello Kitties, Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School, Oh Candy. I mean, God, this is so good. And decent copy. You know, I just wanted to have a vinyl copy of the first Cheap Trick record. Next, I got the U2 Live Under a Blood Red Sky. This is when I used to really dig U2, and I never had this. This was, you know, an early live record recorded in 1983, so it's got the stuff from like War, October, the first album. So it's got Gloria, I Will Follow, Sunday Bloody Sunday, New Year's Day. Really good. It's when U2 is just starting to break big, and this is a really good live record, so I liked it. I paid $8 for it, which maybe was steep, but I don't know. I've never really priced a U2 record before, so I'm not really sure on that. Okay, next up, Elvis, Now. This is a 1972 record from Elvis. This is when he's starting to venture into the Vegas Fat Elvis era, and it's not quite there yet, but it's mostly there. You know, probably the best known songs on here would be Help Me Make It Through the Night, which is all right, you know, and then Put Your Hand in the Hand, which I always find to be funny. But it's a religious song kind of, and Elvis, I think, had a hit with it back then. He does a cover of Hey Jude by the Beatles, which was sort of interesting because, like, I was listening to it, and I expected it to be all Elvis'd up, you know what I mean? Like for him to do his sort of normal shtick with the song, kind of trying to make it his own. But he really didn't. He just sort of sang it kind of straight. And the only time he really like put on all that Elvis affectation was in that part of the song in Hey Jude where he goes, Jude, 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 you know, that part. And like Elvis starts doing the whole Elvis shtick right there. But besides that, he just sings it kind of straight. I didn't get to side 2 yet. I haven't had a chance. You know, but I enjoyed this. I do kind of collect 60s and 70s Elvis for some reason. Not collect them like I need a mint condition version, but if I find an Elvis record that I don't have for $5 or less, I generally will pick it up. And then the last thing I got at the pop-up record shop was a copy of Kinks, One for the Road Live, their 1980 live album, which I actually already had on vinyl. This is an upgrade copy because my cover is super beat to shit. I mean, it is. I've described in videos in the past where I used to have this cat 25 years ago or whatever. I mean, he's been dead for 12, 13 years at this point. Anyways, he used to scratch in a part of my records right in the K section, and he thrashed a bunch of Kinks, Kiss, and some other artists, and this was one of the ones that he thrashed. The record was fine, the vinyl was fine, but the cover was toast. I spent $8 for a double album. I figured whichever vinyl is better, I'll keep that. I know this is the cover that's better, and this is a really good live record. I know some people are going to poo-poo it because of the era of the Kinks. There's very distinct eras of that band. And I know a lot of people really love the 60s, really the late 60s when they really Britished it up, and everything was like, they were very, very English and stuff. But then by like 75, and they were in that, low budget era, and Misfits and some of the other records towards the end of the 70s, when they were doing what was sort of their American period, or they sounded American, or like their arena rock period. I love that stuff. That's my favorite era of the Kinks. I like the 60s stuff too. I like the Britishy stuff. I like the Green Preservation Society with all of that stuff. But I mean, I prefer low budget and Misfits. And my favorite album is actually Give the People What They Want, which is after this, so none of those songs are on here. But anyways, it's an upgrade copy for me on this one. Okay, and then a couple days before, I actually made my first trip back to Half Price Books in about 2 years. I used to be kind of a regular there, and of course COVID messed with that. I kind of stopped going, but part of the reason why I also stopped going wasn't just COVID. It was also because they actually got someone there who started knowing what they were doing and was pricing records appropriately, whereas before they had no idea. So you would always find just great scores in there that were totally priced inappropriately, like way cheaper than they should be. But they fixed that. They got somebody that knows what they're doing. So you don't find as many scores there as you used to, although I did find a really good one. We'll get to that in a second. So the first one I pulled out of the clearance bin, and I should have just left it there. This is the very best of Merle Haggard, and not talking about the quality of the music. I'm saying this record is beat to shit. It is unplayable, and I've only paid $2, but it's about $1.50 more than it's worth, really. This should have been like 50 cents or free because it is so beat up and scratched up. It's worthless. To even hear the songs, I had to go on Apple Music and listen to it. So it has like Okie from Muskogee and some other hits from Merle Haggard, but he was one that I'm not as familiar with him, but it's older country that I'm interested in, but I don't know. Next up, in that sort of same theme, this is Jerry Lee Lewis. Sings the Country Music Hall of Fame Hits Volume 1. This is great, okay? Now, I love Jerry Lee, his rock and roll period from the 50s, okay? He was an originator of rock and roll. He was there with Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Elvis and Bill Haley and all of those, Ike Turner, all those original dudes that were the origins of rock and roll. But as probably most of you know, his career kind of got derailed because of some scandals in his life. Most importantly, significantly being the fact that he married his 13-year-old cousin and brought her to England on tour, and people freaked out. Like, what a fucking weirdo. Why are you marrying your 13-year-old cousin? And it was kind of inexplicable, and it really did a lot of damage to him. And so his career kind of went in the toilet. But he revived his career in the mid to late 60s and became sort of a country singer and had some hits again with country. So this is him doing country standards, from Hank Williams. He does Jambalaya and I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. He does Four Walls. Let's see here, Sweet Dreams, which was Patsy Cline, and some other ones. And it's nice. It's a good record. I think I paid $4 for it. Good quality. And then the score that I found was this. The Runaways debut. There's Joan Jett on the back cover. This is a Japanese pressing on Nippon Records with Japanese writing. Okay, there's the Japanese on one side, and then you got the English lyrics on the other side. Now, it doesn't have the Obi strip. If you look it up on Discogs, it does have an Obi strip, and I don't have that. And it's a little worn, but the fact is I paid $9 for this, and minimum on Discogs it's worth probably twice that. So it's cool for a number of reasons. It's a Japanese pressing. Number two, it's a completely alternate cover. This is not what the cover, the original Runaways cover of the first album just has Cherie Currie on it, and now this has the band minus Joan, who is again on the back cover on this one. So when you open it this way, okay, you get the whole band on there. So, I mean, I've heard this album for 30 years. I mean, I like it, and it's a great record. I kind of like the second album, Queens of Noise, a little bit better, but this was a nice score, and again, I feel like they maybe didn't know what they had there, but hey, big deal. Of course, Half Price Books also has CDs, so I picked up a few of those. The first thing I got is I'm actually listening to in the background right now is The Who, Endless Wire. Okay, this was their 2006 album. The first album they made after the death of John Entwistle. And, you know, I could have heard this 15 years ago. I chose not to, you know? I just didn't want to hear it. I was having trouble wrapping my brain around calling this stuff The Who when it was just Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend. Now, granted, Pete writes the songs, Daltrey's the lead vocalist. Those are two of the important guys to have in the band. You know, if it was just the drummer and the bass player and the other guys were dead or gone, it'd be a little hard to call it The Who. I get it, why you can do that. I've been listening to it. It's not bad. You know, it's not the bombastic Who, the super intense stuff with, like, you know, because John Entwistle is gone and Keith Moon is gone. And that happened. I mean, Keith died in the 70s, right? 78 or so. So they've already adapted their sound a little bit. I happen to really love Face Dances from 1981, which was the first album without Keith when they brought in Kenny Jones. It's just point of reference. It was the first album I ever bought with my own money back in '81. So you know, I'm not one of these guys where it says once Keith left, died. You know, it wasn't The Who anymore. It still was. And I guess by that same token, you could say now that John Entwistle passed, this is still The Who, and it's enjoyable, and I'm kind of digging it. So anyways, the album is split up into two parts. There's Endless Wire, and then something called Wire and Glass, a mini opera. So again, I kind of had enough of the operas from Pete, but I mean, I love and respect Pete Townsend, but I mean, enough of the operas. We don't need that. Just write a series of songs. It's okay. And it also comes with a bonus DVD, Live at the Lion, which is only a 5-song live DVD. Haven't listened to it yet, but or watched it, I should say. But you know, we'll see. Best of the Alan Parsons Project. This was just a couple of bucks. I didn't have any Alan Parsons in my collection, and I used to listen to these guys on the radio. I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You, Eye in the Sky, Games People Play. I mean, they did have a lot of hits in the late 70s, early 80s. I got Lenny Kravitz's Greatest Hits. I didn't have any Lenny Kravitz in my collection. I don't know what happened to it. I do remember I was a pretty early adopter of Lenny Kravitz back in the 80s when he first came out. He had that record, You Gotta Let Love Rule, you know. And thought he was super cool, and I bought the Let Love Rule album, and people sort of criticized him at the time for sort of aping the 60s, and then the next album he had Are You Gonna Go My Way, and then he was doing the 70s. Anyways, I remember thinking he was really cool right from the start. My initial notice of him, of course, came because he was married to Lisa Bonet, and she was very, very famous back then, and he wasn't. And she was, I mean, I had such a major crush on Lisa Bonet back in the 80s. And then I found out she was marrying some guy she'd married a guy named Leonard Kravitz. And I'm like, whoa, she married like a Jewish guy? Like, that's cool, you know? I guess there's hope for me yet, right? And then I saw who Leonard Kravitz was. He's Lenny Kravitz. His mother was Roxy Roker, who was on the Jeffersons. And, you know, he's this like amazing looking rock star dude or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, I see there's Lisa Bonet's attraction, right? But he was really cool, and then after the second album, I kind of didn't really pay much attention to Lenny. I saw him open for the Stones once in the 90s, and I've always thought he was really cool. I thought I still had like a Let Love Rule CD or something, but I don't know. It wasn't there. So now I have this. The last thing in this massive haul that I got is Wilco and Billy Bragg. This is the Mermaid Avenue Volume 2. I've had the Volume 1 since the 90s, and I never checked out the rest of them. It's such a great series. If you're unfamiliar with this, it was there were volumes of lyrics that Woody Guthrie had written. But this was back in the day before home recording. He couldn't exactly get on his iPad and make a home demo, so all he had was the lyrics. If he had melodies, they were in his head because nobody knew what they were. So his family commissioned Billy Bragg and Wilco to create music around these Woody Guthrie lyrics. And the first collection is amazing. I mean, it's so good. California Stars being my favorite song on there. But I never checked out the second one or the third one even. And or maybe that's just a compilation of all of the two. I'm not sure. But either way, I got this for the first time. I haven't listened to it yet, but I am very much looking forward to it because, like I said, I did really like the first set. And I like Billy Bragg and Wilco. I think they're both really cool, so I'm pretty sure this is going to be good as well. All right, that's pretty much it. That wraps her up. I got a couple of live shows coming up. I got Parquet Courts coming up, Super Wolves, which is Bonnie Prince Billy and Matt Sweeney coming up. A lot of great shows, so hopefully I have footage of that coming up shortly. And a bunch of new releases that we'll be getting to in the near future. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.